Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today, former mayor, former TV star of Fact TV, and so much more. We've got Sean Pfaff here today. Sean, welcome back to TV of Fact TV. And how are you doing today?
Well, thank you, Jeremy. It's nice to see you. I was excited to hear from you and to do this interview. I'm doing well. I'm still living in Fitchburg, still active in the community. My wife and I live in Seminole Forest. We have a beautiful little half pity that I walk in the Seminole Glen Park twice a day, especially on cold days like yesterday. Is a little tough, but very active in the Fitchburg community still part of the Lions Club and still involved in the community. Also have been selling real estate for the last few years since I was mayor in Fitchburg area. So still very involved, and it's nice to reconnect with an old friend like you. You and I did a lot together in those 4 years when I was mayor.
Yeah, you know, I was behind the camera the whole time, so to be out in front now is definitely different. So you know, just talking with you on camera, I think is pretty awesome indeed.
Well, we always say that you had the perfect face for radio, right?
Well, I still say that every single day, and everybody knows that who's watching TF.
I shouldn't
certainly.
talk.
No, we're well, I'll get you at the end, don't you worry. But we're really here today because you have joined the Fitchburg Historical Society, which is an awesome organization. And Sean, tell us what's going on at the Historical Society.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, I have been reached out to by some great friends on the Fitchburg Historical Society over the years. And as my time as mayor 10 years ago and traveled throughout the city, really learned a lot about the city of Fitchburg. I remember fondly doing an event which Fact TV covered, where we did placemaking on the bike trails heading to Paoli in the southern end of our city. And I'm a farm kid myself in northern La Crosse County. I grew up in northern La Crosse County on a dairy farm, and my family had been in that area since the 1870s. I got down here obviously because of school and life and things like that, but I understood rural families and how important kind of being in a community for a long time. So I really took an interest in that when I was mayor. We did a lot of placemaking things, if you remember the great new logo we got that's everywhere, really inspired out of Fitchburg's history. My family happens to be German and Norwegian, but down here, obviously, the Irish settled this community. So after I kind of got myself situated after being mayor, get more involved in the community, was reached out to be part of the group. And I joined the group this past fall, and I'm excited to do that. And we got a 12-member board, and the group, as you know, and as when I was mayor, we put the library in. Of course, it was a great community effort. I was honored to be a mayor to open up a library in a city for the first time we had a library. One of the key parts of that is the library has a Fitchburg historical room. So it can tell you how important the history of Fitchburg is. And the modern day research and curating that continues to go on about the history of Fitchburg. We have designated space in our library. So the cooperation and collaboration, not only with the city, but the Historical Society, and to have that space so anybody can come into our library and go in and work from that space and learn about the Historical Society and the Fitchburg history itself, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that a former mayor is joined onto this, because you're right. As a mayor, you're opened up to so many things besides just the election process itself. I mean, you're going out and meeting constituents, but you're truly got to see, and you were in during a pretty active time for Fitchburg. It was a pivotal time in Fitchburg, in fact. And I think of one of the ones standing out on a very cold day on a ribbon cutting up in Uptown, and you know, and just there was farmland and big space, but how important that Fitchburg is seated in such the perfect place when you think about it in Dane County. But I think that gives you the perspective of being on the Historical Society and really embracing the culture of Fitchburg and making sure that it is shared with future residents and beyond.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to do it when they reached out to me. And I admit that the history of Fitchburg back to the 1840s, I remember, Jeremy, you probably have the videotape of this. We did a proclamation at City Hall recognizing the Kinney family had been here since 1844. And as a history buff myself, I was able to say that that was, pre-James Polk administration, how long the history goes. But one of the reasons I wanted to get involved is I wanted to talk and bring to the board a little bit about the modern history. We just recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the fire department. I know 50 years, I'm 50 years old, just turned this year. Yeah, that seems like a long time, but really it's not in the arc of where our city has been if you go back to the 1840s. And so many people that you talk to, and when I was mayor and people talk to me when they're selling their houses, when I go talk to people in Wildwood or Wildwood South, I remember when Fish Hatchery Road was cornfields and there were cows out there and this and that. We have so much history the last 20 years that's happened as well. And as you mentioned, I was mayor a decade ago and proud to serve 2 terms and really work hard and redevelop our city. That was during the 2011 census, was 23,000 people or 24,000. I think now we're gonna get numbers to show we're over 30,000. And as I always said, and people probably heard me say this ad nauseum, what other community is blessed to be between the fastest growing business Epic in downtown Madison and UW Madison? So I think there's so much history that of the last 50, 20, 10 years. The other thing I think that the Historical Society, which does great work, and I'm proud to be on this board with so many longtime family people that have been here forever, but also great people that have moved here 30 years ago. Our president, Alan, does a wonderful job, and he's been in this community working for Omega, so he knows the growth of Fitchburg, is the incredible diversity. We talk about the geographic stuff, the farms, Stoner Prairie. Heck, we named a new development after Stoner Prairie. On that, we respect our history of that, but also we've got the urban, the rural, the suburban diversity, but the diversity of people, the demographic diversity and the history of that, as recently was discussed at City Hall, Fitchburg was the only community in Wisconsin that's ever elected an African-American mayor. Now, the city of Milwaukee has an opportunity this spring to do that, but Fitchburg did that many, many years ago. And so our community, as it continues to grow, continues to be more and more diverse. When I was in there and I saw those demographic numbers 10 years ago, it was 34% African-American Hispanic. You can only imagine those numbers will continue to grow. And the history that those folks bring to our community should be discussed and should be researched and chronicled and all of that stuff. So that's part of it I want to be. I am never going to be able to say, I remember Fish Hatchery Road when it was a Bridgman's instead of the new Park Bank corporate headquarters. Those long routes for me go back to La Crosse County. I can tell you, because that part of the state is growing as well. I can tell you about how La Crosse County has changed. But I can't tell you that down here, and I respect those that can. But I would think I can tell a story about the last 20 years or so in Fitchburg.
Yeah, and it's good. And we want to get into to talk a little bit about the website, which is a great spot to start if you're interested in learning anything about the Historical Society as an organization or just the history of Fitchburg. It's the place to be.
Yeah, that's Fitchburg. Fitchburg Historical Site website is just a wonderful place to be. And I want to make sure I have the right address here, Jeremy. I should have that in front of me, and I'll keep going here. That website is just wonderful. And the greatest thing about it is you can link through the city's web page as well. Like I said, the city has a connection to the Historical Society, but the Historical Society is its own organization. That's fitchburghistory.org, fitchburghistory.org. And that website, you can see all kinds of great old plat books. You can see older landmarks in the city. One of the great things about our community, I know you've done a lot of coverage of this on Fact TV, is the 5 different bike trails that go through Fitchburg. I mean, it's only community in Dane County we do that. So within just a short bike ride, you can be in rural Fitchburg and really see these old landmarks. And we've done a nice job, as I mentioned earlier, about placemaking those and really kind of stopping and pulling off if you got to take a drink of water or whatever. You can read about many things that happened here many years ago. And that's what the beauty of this is. But since, the fire department was 50 years ago, Fitchburg became a city. It will be 40 years ago next year, 1983, that Fitchburg actually became a city. It was a long township for years. And so the other thing I think the Fitchburg Historical Society can do is it can give us a longitudinal look at our history And it says on our website, the history is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I really wanted to look at that in a sense of that perspective of today and tomorrow, because in the scope of Fitchburg, I kind of fit into the today. Been involved in the community for 15 years, very involved the last 12, if you will. And so going forward, where does this history take us? Incredible transportation corridors, the Fish Hatchery Road, Highway 14, finally got done with Verona Road, the expansions that are occurring in this city, the population growth, the neighborhood plans. For example, former longtime city planner, you know him well, Tom Havel, doesn't live in Fitchburg himself, but he's on the Fitchburg Historical Society. Brings a great perspective because he helped plan many of these neighborhoods and named many of them. I actually learned something, Jeremy, that was interesting. I knew this before I went to the last meeting where I reconnected with Tom Havel. The neighborhood of Wildwood has streets like Resto, Fresher, Rembrandt, Margate, Pembroke, all those streets. Do you know what those are named after?
I do not.
Tom Havel did know that, but I knew it as well. Plumbing parts. So I'm just telling you, somebody's got to capture that history. There's a reason it was named after plumbing parts. There's a reason why we have Quarry Hill neighborhoods, because there was a Quarry Hill dairy way back in the day. All of this stuff is connected. And as you know me, and this isn't about me tooting my own horn, but I was a guy that loved to bring Fitchburg together as a community. In fact, my real estate slogan is connecting people with places. We built the library, splash pad park. We really worked hard to bring things together. Fact TV has helped do that, because we don't have those one school district. We're all together at the high school basketball game, but we have things like the Historical Society that can really continue to bring our history to our today and tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this city so unique, as the things you mentioned, the diversity, the rural, and our city is just all of those factors and beyond, I think makes it so interesting. And Sean, we'll look forward to talking to you and the rest of the staff at the Historical Society, and tell Tom hi for us too. It's been a while since I've heard his name, but darn, I'm gonna have to come to one of those meetings just to check in with him as well. So thank you for your time. Nice seeing you, friend, and we'll talk with you and others real soon.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Check out the Historical Society's website, and we'll check back in with them next month here on TF. Take a quick break. More to come. You are watching Talking Fitchburg.